Our next speaker is Tim, and he's a principal architect, principal software engineer for Raytheon, where he's a certified software architect. He spent the last 30 years, also unbelievable due to how young he looks. I have to say that, by the way. It's required. He spent 30 years in software engineering, both as a civil servant and as a defense contractor. Today we're going to learn about how to incorporate software architecture into our business models. So please put your hands together and welcome Tim.
Good. All right. Okay. So welcome, and thank you for choosing to attend this presentation. I'm going to talk about how Raytheon is attempting to incorporate software architecture into its business model and give you some ideas on how you might be able to do the same thing with your own company. So, overview of what I'm going to talk about. Briefly talk about my background, what I believe to be the catalyst for software architecture. Why do we need software architecture? Going to identify the need for software architecture. Where does that come from? Try to discuss how you make a business case for software architecture. Establish your own software architecture program, and talk about a little bit about lessons learned and a summary. I'm Tim Kertis. I'm a principal software engineer at Raytheon. I worked in the software architecture and innovation department. Currently, we reorganized, but that's where my recent experience is. I have a master's degree in computer science, and I've taken all the SEI courses for architecture, passed the exam, and as you know, already 30 years of experience. I'm still a young guy. I'm going to present the evolving software architecture at Raytheon. I say evolving because it's constantly changing, and we still have a long way to go. The particular program I'm going to discuss is only happening at the Indianapolis site of IIS, Intelligence, Information, and Services. We expect that we'll go from there to just expanding that effort all the way across our business unit, IIS, and then using that as a template to expand across the entire company. I did get involved in this effort based on my experience with one particular program that I worked on, and I'm going to discuss that. That's going to be the story I'm going to present. I'm here to share the experience that I've had in trying to move this software architecture program into our company and give you some ideas on how you might be able to do the same. So before you decide to start off on an architecture program, you're really going to have to decide, first of all, do you have a need for it? And the catalyst, in my opinion, is that you're looking at two things, primarily software size, software complexity. That's the catalyst that drives you to need a software architect versus a software engineer. A third category is safety, security, and criticality. Those things also can play an important role deciding whether or not you need software architecture. The analogy I'm making here is that software architecture, as it applies to software engineering versus buildings, building construction. So you have to look at your software products and decide, what am I building? Am I building a doghouse? Am I building a skyscraper? Am I building something in between? And does it justify the need for a software architect? So the story goes something like this. I think it's been about 10, maybe even 12 years ago when I was the technical lead for V-22 AMEGs. The project was about ready to go from an R&D cycle into a maintenance cycle, which meant our funding would have been cut and we would have gone into a low maintenance mode. It's that time that I looked at the requirements that the Marines and the Air Force had, what their plans were, what their goals were, and I decided what would be best is to convert the standalone system into an enterprise-wide global network. The standalone system is called AMEGS, Aircraft Maintenance Event Ground Station. It reads data off of a cartridge, and that cartridge is reading data from various sensors on the aircraft's body and the aircraft's engine. And it tells the maintenance managers what kind of maintenance they need to do in the aircraft. It produces reports and suggests maintenance activity, but it's limited to processing of one aircraft. So we decided the best thing to do would be to develop an application that would look across the entire fleet of aircraft and support some of the new functionality they needed for aircraft deployments, produce analysis across the entire fleet. Some functions would be just Marine functions, some would be Air Force, but we wanted to be able to identify any modifications that the aircraft might need to accommodate what we see in the maintenance data. Today, AMEGS Web is now the predecessor to Cameo, a new software application that does roughly the same thing. So what we were looking at is the need to develop this application and bring in software architecture to handle the complexities that we saw in customer-specific network configurations. There were complexities in the user interface. What I'm showing here are a couple screens, but there are 2 of maybe 50 or 60 screens that had to be developed to build the application. So there's complexities in the network, the user interface, and also in the computing platforms. We went from having a single standalone workstation to having 7 different platforms. So we have a deployable server, we have a web server, we have a database server, we have the standalone workstation and interfaces to Marine legacy applications and Air Force legacy applications. And then we also have this network connectivity we had to deal with. So now I'm realizing this is not a software engineering task anymore. Now we need new skills and abilities to apply. So I'm recognizing the need here for software architects. There are also complexities in the data management. Across the top, you see the different platforms, and then along the left side here, we have different types of data. And you can see that in any given function, for example, exporting an aircraft or importing an aircraft data set, we have a lot of data that's moving around from one platform to another. So you're going to have to identify the need that you have for software architecture, and prior to having a code size to look at, you're going to have to decide, am I going to have a high code size or complexity? So some of the hints that you might have that you have a real-time embedded system, you have concurrency, multiple threads, high performance requirements. You're doing parallel computing, multi-core processing. You have to incorporate off-the-shelf software, maybe do open source development, all these things, and the list goes on. All these things contribute to the code size and complexity. So another thing you will need to do is present a business case to your organization to justify an investment in software architecture. We've had to present to engineering, to business development, executive management, and we've had to illustrate the benefits of the software architecture program, and we've also had to illustrate the benefits of software product lines that we recommend. We provided management with cost-benefit analysis and prepared cost and schedules for a phased implementation because we knew it wasn't all going to happen at one time, and we had to get management buy-in. So in a nutshell, what you're doing when you establish this program is you're creating a program that promotes quality products with capable people using repeatable processes. Now, Raytheon's a defense contractor, and we have CMMI levels 3, 4, and 5 within our organization, and those processes have to be done in a documented way, and when we incorporate software architecture, we have to modify those processes in accordance with a set of procedures that need to be followed by everyone. So I'm also going to say that we also have to identify the critical elements of the software architecture program. Which elements do you really need in your organization? So I've listed a few of the elements of our program that we have. We have to support our products. We have to support product lines. We have a software architecture review board. That review board is going to review software architectures before the preliminary design stage. We have to define software architecture roles and responsibilities. We are going to be developing an architect, software architect competency model that maps to the products that we develop. And there are many products within Raytheon, so there are going to be many different competency models. We've started a software architect certification program. I just recently went through that process, became Raytheon's first certified software architect, but there will be many more to follow. And I believe this year in our organization, we have scheduled for about 12 more people to go through that process. One of the elements that we decided we needed was a history and evidence package. So when you go before a board, when you're ready to become certified, you've got a documented set of information that describes the history with at least 3 projects that you've worked on that indicate that you're ready to be certified. And we create a template to make that happen very quickly. One of the elements is a software architect certification board. So these people are the governance over software certification. We also need to document all of our processes and procedures. So we're going to start by identifying and describing your system and the software products that you have. That's the first step. You'll need this information to construct the competency model for your architects, and you also need it for establishing common architectures and supported product lines. You'll leverage the use of software product lines where it makes sense for your business. It doesn't always make sense to have a software product line, so you're going to have to study your products and determine where it makes sense. Where can you get a good cost benefit out of it? I'm going to recommend that everyone does this by placing that software product line in configuration management and treating it just like you would any other project. We noticed that when we didn't do that when we started, we kind of lost the configuration management of the product line, and that really is not very helpful when you need to reuse it. So I'm suggesting you formally review your software architectures, and this is done with a board of software architects, a review board, and that is done on a regular basis prior to, after the requirements analysis phase and before preliminary design phase. So I'm suggesting we define roles and responsibilities for architects. We have different types of roles within Raytheon. There's the software architect candidate, someone who's aspiring to be a software architect. We have certified software architects that perform functions in the design area. We have a chief software architect who's responsible for identifying the correct person to do those tasks. They find a match for projects that come in. Again, and then there are two boards, one for software architect certification, another board for software architecture reviews. You need to create the competency necessary to architect your software products. And so we're looking at a tiered model that begins with education, second tier with knowledge, skills, and abilities. It's an experience type level. The third level is training. Fourth level is some testing. And finally, board certification. So this kind of forms like a pyramid. This is one example of a competency model that I proposed. And at the bottom, we have things that are basic skills that we expect of our software engineers. Be familiar with operating systems, programming languages, mixed programming and bindings, object-oriented design and programming, modeling methods, software design tools, and so on. The second tier really is talking about different platforms, specific areas where we need specific competencies. We do real-time programming, embedded systems. We do network programming. We do database applications, web applications, graphics applications. Those types of platforms require different kinds of skills from the architect. So those are the things we're promoting at that level. The next level up usually happens once we've identified candidates and we believe they're ready to become software architects. So we would send them to training, to SEI training, and optionally take the exam. So there's also internal training at Raytheon for DODAF. There's some software architect training that's internal. And then we ask everyone to get training in the area of security, or what we call cyber training. And then finally, the last step is to go before the board and become certified. So I am suggesting that you certify competency of your architects. Design and document a software architect certification program. Support it with competency models. Document the program, place it under CM, make the program a formal process, and the board has authority over changes to the software architect certification program. You want to dock your architect's competency and expedite the certification process. The process we have going right now takes time. So we've created a template that makes it easier for each applicant to record their history and evidence. So we use that template to speed things up, and then we'll modify that template over time as we need to. So we do want to establish a software architect certification board. This again is a governance organization that is going to review the software architects. We need to document our software architecture processes, and that's a formal process. We need to modify our current software organization's processes. We need to inject software architecture in the right place. If we're dealing with a waterfall model, it's going to happen after software requirements are developed and before preliminary design is done. But it also needs to be injected in that process, regardless of whether we're implementing a waterfall method or some agile process. Everything I'm talking about is a written procedure, gets documented, and put in CM. So I'm also suggesting that software architecture procedures get defined in detail so that you know what your inputs are, your outputs are, what your entrance and exit criteria are, and you know what stakeholders are supposed to review this information. We want to identify the high-level procedures of the software architecture process. What do software architects do anyway? So they're going to establish software quality attributes. They're going to make key architectural decisions. They are going to produce the architectural design and the documentation for that. They are going to perform cost estimates, and they are going to provide expertise in software architecture reviews. So that's some of the key things that we expect of our software architects. We're going to define and document the selection of software quality attributes, and we're going to prioritize those quality attributes. So the key architectural decisions fall in 4 categories, according to me. Those categories deal with hardware, operating systems, and drivers, deals with software technology, the tools that you're going to use to develop, and the reuse strategy you're going to apply to your design. I have some examples here. For hardware, drivers, OS, we're talking about selecting maybe an RTOS for a real-time system, bus communication cards and drivers, database APIs and drivers, graphics cards and drivers. For software technology, we're talking about selecting IPC mechanisms, bus communication protocols, persistence technology, graphics technology. These are the kinds of decisions the software architects are going to make, and these are the things that we expect our software architects to understand, do research in, have experience with. So that also goes for development tools and reuse strategy. There are a lot of different tools that you can choose to use on a project, and that's one of the major decisions you're going to make in your the software architect should be doing that. And the same thing goes with reuse strategy. You're going to select software processes to follow. You're going to select historical data to do your cost estimate. You may select software design patterns, internal or externally designed software components, and choose whether or not to follow a software product line architecture. So I'm going to skip over some of these because we just pretty much covered those things. I do have some examples back here where there are 2 ways really to call out some of these decisions. One is in a generic way, and the other is with a vendor-specific specification. So either one of those works, but we'd still need to have the software architects making those decisions. So one of the things we are promoting is this concept of creating a template to expedite the construction of the history and evidence package, where we develop requirements that record your history, evidence, describes the education, experience, the training, the testing you've done, and the reason for the template is to make all the artifacts consistent and make it expedite the process, save time, save money. So you're going to have to decide whether or not to invest in a software product line as a software architect based on your business products. Study your current and future products. What things do they have in common? Can you gain some efficiency by developing common software architecture to support those products? It will make you more competitive in developing software applications. You're going to need to sell the idea to your management, and you're going to need to obtain funding to develop a product line. You're going to have to write some good requirements and implement that product line, and again, apply CM to all the artifacts. So for us, the lessons learned were establishing a successful software architecture program is going to require a champion, somebody who's going to drive this thing, even when you get a lot of resistance from management, don't get support, even when money dries up. You have to have someone that's going to push this. So you need to sell the idea to management, and to do that, you're going to need to create a really great slide presentation to do that, make a convincing business case, obtain the funding you need, and be satisfied with making some incremental progress sometimes, because the effort is huge and it's not going to happen overnight. So I'm suggesting also to place everything under CM control so you don't lose any ground. Lastly, I think it's good to provide some kind of incentive for your software engineers to become software architects, because a lot of this you're going to do on your own. It's going to be on your own time. The preparation of the packages, it takes a considerable effort. So in summary, as a business, you need to identify your need for software architecture, make the business case for it, and establish your own program. You can take some of the ideas you saw here. Some of them aren't all scalable to a smaller company. Some of them are applicable only to a larger company, but I think you'll find that most of them can be applied to even a small company. So tailor the steps provided here to implement your own software architecture program. Yes?
Okay. Is this architecture program part of HR so that people can go through those ranks that you listed earlier?
No, it's not. And there may be a time when we do that, but currently software architects are not, they're a role rather than a job title. So there could be various titles that you're applying for when you go through HR, but the software architect is currently just a role. Yes? Oh, that's a good point. That is a good point. The company believes that soft skills are really important for software architects. Being able to get people to team together, being able to convince management, go in front of executive management, engineering, business development, and for us, because we do so many military projects, you have to be able to go in front of admirals and generals and provide them with a sales pitch to get them to make changes or to get them to buy into some of the ideas that we're going to propose. we have no way to train people to have soft skills, but it is something the certification board is looking at, and it's looking for evidence that you are able to handle those, perform those soft skills, yes. So it's not something in my slides, but it is something that's extremely important. Anybody else? Thank you.